through a lot of shit and a lot of ups and a lot of downs and a lot of in between and some very high peaks and some very low valleys. I actually ended up dropping out of high school when I was, I think, 16. I was partying, drugs, and all of that stuff, like drinking. Been dealing with rejection. I let her walk out the door, and I got on my knees and I started praying and asking God to guide me.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Be the Connection podcast, where we dive into stories of community, mentorship, and success. My mission is to bring you inspiring conversations, real insights, and the kind of value that helps you grow. So grab a seat, settle in, and let's get connected. Hey everyone, my name is B, and welcome to Be the Connection. And today's guest is a really cool dude because he just tells it how it is. I love it. He's got a great sense of humor and he's just real. And that's what we expect. That's what we want. And that's what I want to share with you today. And just hopefully this can definitely be something that can resonate with you. Lance, welcome. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for being my guest.
Guys, I'm Lance. B and I met, I don't know, it's been over a year now. Not too far. You're about 4 hours away from where I live. So, but yeah, I got into this community, into the Gator and the Sub 2 community 2.5 years ago. It'll be 3 years this October is my 3-year anniversary in Gator. And
Nice.
It's crazy, right? Now they consider me an OG. And
Yes.
but man, I got to tell you, I've been through a lot of shit and a lot of ups and a lot of downs and a lot of in between and some very high peaks and some very low valleys. But that's because I've been constantly moving the needle. So the way I started that was, first off, education, right? I want to touch on that real quick. Education is the number one thing you need to do if you plan on getting into any kind of new endeavor or starting a business. If you aren't educated, you are going to most definitely fail. To me, what separates success from people who quit is part of it is education. Learning, always striving for excellence, striving to learn more, constantly 1% a day. That's kind of how I live my life. And it's so important that you just keep going, right? That's a huge, huge gold nugget right there. Life's going to throw you curveballs. You've got to build that mental fortitude to handle that stuff, though. That's the big part of it.
And I want to also reiterate on that education, right?
Yep.
So the education, we're not talking about the education that you learned in school. Yeah. This is completely different, okay? Yeah. You got to unlearn that to learn this.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not talking about indoctrination. We're talking about education, okay? Yeah, so education, is, as far as like if you want to learn more or start a business or start doing something, learn as much as you possibly can on that subject matter. So anyways, I was born and raised in Southern California. I moved to Oregon when I was 18 years old. And I'm just going to go straight into my story. This is how I started raising millions of dollars in capital, okay? By telling this story. This is how I started every one-on-one Zoom, okay? Born and raised, right? Moved to Oregon when I was 18. But before that, I actually was struggling quite a bit in school, and I wasn't good at school. And I had ADD, whatever. I don't know whatever the labels are, right? I just had a hard time sitting still. And I'm a visionary. I'm a dreamer. So, they kind of punish kids who are dreamers and visionaries, which is really sad. But I actually ended up dropping out of high school when I was, I think, 16, and went to work full time with my stepdad. And I was getting in a lot of trouble on the side. I was partying, drugs, and all of that stuff, like drinking. I was a party animal when I was in my teenage years. My dad wasn't around. My stepdad wasn't really there for me much. And I rebelled. And I hung out behind the high school a lot more than I did in the high school, just to give you an idea, right? I was that kid. So, but I'd been dealing with rejection, right? And I always had this sense that I wasn't good enough for my dad to want to hang out with me, So I started hanging out with the misfits kids and the kids who were also from broken homes and got in a lot of trouble. Thankfully, not with the law too much. I was pretty smooth. But I won't get into that too much. But I ended up moving to Oregon when I was 18, which was basically a godsend, right? My stepdad moved us up there. Work was slowing down in the valley, in the LA County, in the valley of Southern California. So we went up there. I met a guy on a job site. And after, I don't know, about a year or so, maybe 2 years in, I met this guy and he's like, Lance, I have an opportunity for you. It doesn't have anything to do with the construction. If you're interested, meet me at this address at this time tonight. And I'm like, what the frick? What is this? So I was like, hey, whatever, let's do it. Let's check it out. Went and I was introduced to network marketing for the first time. The cool thing
Mm.
was I'd never seen or heard anything like it, like most people who get introduced to it. And I was like, whoa, this is an opportunity for me to get my family out of poverty and to break the curse and those chains of being poor, because none of my family had really gone through college. None of them had really done a whole lot with their lives. And this was an opportunity for me. I caught the fire, caught the vision that night. I was like, wow. And so what really happened was I started sharing with everybody I met, everybody I knew. Everybody probably hated me because I was very persistent, but I didn't make any money. In fact, I lost a lot of money because I spent it on education. So I didn't really lose it, but I spent it. I invested it, right? That's what I like to tell people. Started reading John Maxwell, started getting around rooms of people who were successful. And that's really when it all started for me about 25 years ago. My entrepreneurial kind of journey started there. I didn't really get a whole lot done with it, but like I said, I was going to weekend events and conferences and stuff, and I ended up starting my own granite tile business because that's what I was doing. And so I started that business, worked very hard at it, did it all myself for I don't know, the first year, and I ended up talking my wife into helping me with it at the time. But I was working hard, and I started that business, did okay, right? Actually ended up having that business for almost 20 years, that granite tile business.
Wow.
Moved like 3 different times. Yeah, it was really a really good catalyst for the real estate
What
business.
pushed you to like start that business?
It was that multi-level marketing business that I got into. I started just getting more confident, and I started believing to myself a lot more, from some of the books I read, like Winning with People, How to Win Friends and Influence People, obviously Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But for me, it was mostly those other books. Because I'd already kind of caught the vision. I was an entrepreneur before I knew it. I sold illegal fireworks, and I also sold little bags of weed. And I know this can be controversial, but that's just being really honest. When I was a teenager, and so I already had the spirit in me. I didn't realize it. So anyways, I started my own business because of getting around those people who were successful, and I started believing in myself more and more. And I started that business and did really good. We started off probably about 150, 200K a year, grew it into about a $1.5 million a year business by the time it was over. But about, 10-ish years, maybe 11 years ago, my wife and I were like, kind of, okay, what else, right? We had done multiple different multi-level marketing businesses. I kept dragging her into them. We did probably like 5 or 6 of them over the course of 20 years. She kept saying, this is the last, we're not doing this again. This is not doing this again.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, but this one's really it. This is it. And so, but we ended up
I've done
learning.
the same.
Yeah, I did, right?
I've done the same.
It's ambition, right? There's something. We're going to find it. We just need to find the right vehicle. Yeah. So we did all kinds of different stuff, juices and products and health and wellness and, you name it. We did all of it. And so basically, I really was really interested in real estate. And I had been because we were already designing kitchens and bathrooms and outdoor, living spaces and stuff with our business. And it made sense that I could flip houses and make some money. And so I started looking into programs, education, right? Education is key.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into, Fortune Builders with Dan Merrill. And there's a lot of people in our community who've done Fortune Builders, but it was actually the second time because the first thing I did was actually, the no and low money down system. It was like an infomercial 20 plus years ago that I spent like $350 on that I didn't have. I was broke. And my wife was not happy when she got up the next day and found out that Carlton Sheets, that was his name. And it was just a bunch of binders, and those binders and the booklets and the cassette tapes sat in my closet for like 10, 15 years. I dug in, but there was no mentorship. There was no community. I didn't know what the hell none of this stuff meant, So anyways, that was the first little twinkle. And then we joined Than Merrill's group, Fortune Builders. Was going to the only meetings that were close to me were 2.5 hours north in Portland. You can imagine, right? At the time I had my daughter and my wife, and I had a business to run. And it was tough, but I made it up there quite a few times to just get around these other investors and learn from them. And so it took about 2 years until we actually did our first flip, but we found an off-market deal and it was all creative. Our very first deal. Didn't really know what creative finance was. I knew I didn't have the money to fix it, and I knew I didn't want to buy it traditionally. So I kind of figured it out with some of the stuff that I learned from Than's, of course, but I found an off-market deal. We put the rehab together, learned what I didn't want to do pretty quickly. Don't want to clear out 3 tons of garbage out of the backyard. I don't want to do that again. I knew that. I mean, literally trash bags like piled like, 8 foot tall. And it was,
Wow.
once we started getting through about 2 or 3 layers, could you imagine? The smell was so bad. And we were finding needles and hypodermic needles. And I
Man.
literally had to go to the store to buy puncture resistant gloves because we were like, "Ugh." And then also charcoal filter masks because we were heaving.
Yeah.
We were heaving. It was that bad. So, but we knocked it out of the park. We ended up making 40 grand on that first deal, and our partner made 40,000. I brought him in for the gap lending part. I
Nice.
actually, didn't have enough money to rehab it. We had it under contract, closed on it, and I had like $5,000 left, and I was like, shit. And so I
What do I
talked.
do?
Yeah, I brought in one of my employees, actually, funny enough, who had always bragged about his credit score. I was like, oh, this guy's got credit. He can bring his credit
Yeah.
card money in here. And so that's what I did. And he was like, yeah, dude, I'll do it. So anyways, that was it. We were off to the races. Then now we were working full time, 10 hours plus a day in our granite tile business. And then we were working 3 or 4 hours after work on these properties. And,
Yes.
and we knew, I really understood the concept of the delayed gratification and the, short-term sacrifice for long-term gains. You really have to understand that to really be successful, because you're going to miss stuff. You're going to miss
Yeah.
sporting
And that
events. You're
was
going
your
to miss.
first deal, right?
Yeah, that was my first deal. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's amazing.
it really was. It's funny. I didn't actually say it this time, but I'll tell you now since you asked. We actually owed the IRS money from our granite business, and they took every penny of that profit right out of my bank account. So that was a tough learning lesson. And so we were wiped back to square one. All that work, all that extra time, and here we were, not a dime richer.
But in
Yeah.
education
Yeah.
mindset, you
Yep.
were.
Yes.
That's the most
Yeah.
important lesson.
Yeah, and we were less in debt now too. So
Yeah, that is true.
But yeah, it was a wild journey. We just started flipping houses pretty much on the side, and in 2020, right when right after COVID, a few months in, my wife said that she'd wanted to talk to me and the kids, and I got home, and my birthday was coming up. I had a weekend trip planned, or at least a few days to go fishing on my birthday for the last several years at the coast, salmon fishing. And I get home, the trailer's gone. I'm like, what the hell? My trip's coming up. Where the hell's the trailer? She says, hey, I need to talk to you and the kids in the house. And I go, really weird feeling, right? My heart sank, and I knew something was going on. So she sits down, reads me and the kids a letter, tells me that she doesn't feel like she has an identity anymore. She tells me that she um, has some past trauma, childhood trauma coming back to haunt her, that she needs to deal with, and she needs to take 90-day sabbatical. And I'm like, what? Like, what is going on right now? I was so shocked by it. I was thinking about my trailer and myself, and I was still in a selfish place mentally. And she got up and she was bawling, asked me and the kids a hug. She hugged the kids. She asked me if I wanted a hug, and I refused the hug because I was so pissed and upset and hurt, and had all this overwhelming amount of emotions just swirling up in my stomach. And I let her walk out the door. And yeah, within a few days, I realized, man, I really fucked up, right? I really blew it. And so I started reaching out to some friends of mine. First, I got on my knees. I'm a praying man. I'm a believer. I got on my knees and I started praying and asking God to guide me. And he always comes through for me. This photo photo right here is a guy on his knees praying to God, and he sends an angel and a whole army of angels around him here to answer his prayer.
Wow.
And this signifies like a lot of things that we go through. For me, it's a good reminder that God's always got my back. And so, man, I swear I started thinking and pondering about these things, and they just started flooding into my head, these things that I was falling short on. And so I decided I was going to, fight for her and do everything I could to win her back. And so I went on this crazy, incredible journey of rediscovery, unlearning and then relearning, basically, and rediscovering who I truly was and who God intended me to be. And it wasn't this asshole that snapped and was sarcastic and short tempered. That was what I grew up with. That wasn't who I was. And so I had to shed that skin and really go on this incredible journey of really learning to be the best version of myself. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
I reached out
I feel like as you're saying this, that if there's someone out there watching literally every episode that I put out, it has to be known by now. And if it doesn't, I'm pointing it out now, that this isn't just about real estate. This is literally about yourself and everything that you're working towards, right?
Yep.
It has to do a lot with internal
Yeah.
everything,
Really does.
mindset,
Yep.
everything. Your success has to be within. You literally did the work. In the
Yeah.
middle of everything else going on around you, you still stuck to it. You still made sure that you went out and continued improving yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I really dug in. And I was drinking too, man. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was not good. I was in a really dark place, but I had to look past all that. And I had to really, I had to really think about what the most important thing was to me. And that was, obviously my own mental health. But next to that was my wife was realizing how much pain I had caused her and damage that I was doing to her, on top of the shit that she was already dealing with. And so for me, the first part of that was really taking accountability to my shit. And I really had to take extreme ownership to what I was doing to her, because I didn't realize it. But God showed me. I prayed and I reached out to get some, really spiritual guidance from a good brother of mine who I'd gone to church with and was in men's ministry with for years. And this might not resonate with everybody, and that's okay. This is my story. And this is what worked for me really well. You can reach out to the universe, whatever it is, right? You can manifest the stuff. To me, that's God, though, manifestation. And to me, I know I felt the Holy Spirit in me guiding me, right? And so I was seeking Him. I let go of control. That's what it was. I had to let go. I had to let go of the wheel.
Yeah.
And so that's when He showed up, though, for me. And, my buddy said, "Look, Lance, I'm going to give you some advice, and you're not going to like it." I was like, "Well, good.
Uh,
That's what real friends do."
yes.
He goes, "Man, you got to give her space, man. She said 90 days, but it could be 6 months, a year, 2, 3 years. You don't know how long she's going to need to heal and to figure this out." And that was like a gut punch. Oof, I did not like that.
Uh,
But I knew he was right. And he goes, "The second part of it is, man, no, 3 parts. So second part is you got to give her that space. Let her figure it out. You can't bug her. You can't hound her. You've got to let her go." And the third thing he said was, "You got to go on this journey." He's all, "Man, I know you. I know you're a worker. You're going to put in the work and you're going to do whatever you have to do to win your wife's heart back. Here's one thing you really got to remember. You can't do it for her. You got to go on this journey for you first." And I was like, wow, that was like so profound. It just like completely shifted my whole head because I was not on the right path. And I was just kind of groveling and like buying her gifts and candy and shit. It was just pathetic. And that's what a lot of guys do. They don't know what to do, so that's all they do. That's all they can do.
yes.
I realized that was actually doing the exact opposite of what my intention was. And she was like,
Hmm.
"Ew, gross. Like, be a man,
Yeah.
suck it up and get to work." That's what she wanted. But anyway, so I went on this crazy journey, right? And I listened to this audiobook called How to Listen with Intention after my daughter had said, "Hey, Dad, if I can give you a little piece of advice." And she was like 22 at the time, just had our first only grandson, but I had our grandson, right? When this all was happening. And he was like an angel to me too, by the way, just having someone to hold and to squeeze on. Like it was so,
Yeah.
I had lost that, and so I didn't have any affection in my life. So it was really, really cool. But she goes, "Dad, you need to learn how to listen better." And I go, "Well, what do you mean?" I blah, 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 blah. She goes, "Dad, you're doing it right now. You're not listening to me." And that was when it
Man.
was like a lightning bolt struck my brain at that moment. And I was like, "Oh, shit." And then, you know what? I started seeing all these moments play in my head once I let go of it and realized she's right. I started seeing all these moments where my wife tried to talk to me over and over and over again. It was like a broken record. "Oh, forget it. You're not listening. Forget it. You're not listening. Forget it. We'll just
Hmm.
talk later. I'll talk later." It just was like boom, boom, boom on repeat. Like that's what happened to me. And I was like, whoa. So I listened to this
I
audio,
feel like
downloaded.
that happens a lot
Yeah.
where we actually think that everyone's against us and everybody else is wrong, right?
Hmm.
Where everybody keeps telling me this, but this is not it, right? But
Yeah.
in fact it is. It really is us. And we have that shield covering our eyes of victimhood,
Yeah.
and we can't get past that until we actually
Yeah.
start working on ourselves.
It's true. Yeah. You can't really. That's the first part of it. You have to hold yourself accountable.
Yes.
That's really hard for a lot of men to do too. I think is taking extreme ownership really beyond account. Like that's the first part. It's, "Oh, well, she did this,
Being
she did that."
aware.
Yeah, anytime I've tried to just talk to people about relationships who have come to me because they've heard the story, they go, "Man, well, hey, what about this? Well," and I try and help them, but they're not willing to play ball. It's like it takes two teams to play baseball. You can't play baseball with one team. You can't have a good marriage with one one spouse. It
Yeah.
takes two to tango. So, but anyways, it's hard for people to get past that mentally. Well, they did this, they did that, and they're doing this, they're doing that. That doesn't matter. None of that matters to me. Is, do you love them? Are you in love with them? Do you love them enough to make sacrifices to take ownership of what you
Hmm.
are doing? Because you are causing probably half the problems in the relationship, right? So, but
Yes.
so
Rather
anyways,
than it's good that you point that out. It's
yeah.
like, okay, rather than focusing on what they're doing,
Hmm.
focus on what you can change about
Yeah.
yourself.
Yep. That's all you
Because
can do.
even though you may think that, "Oh, I don't need any changing." No, that's exactly when you need a change.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. When you're always pointing the finger, like victim mindset. They did it. They
Yes.
did it. Yeah,
Yes.
100%. Even if maybe they're causing more of the damage, but you're still allowing it or you're feeding into it.
Mhm.
It always takes two to work through any relational problems. So yeah, I listened to that audiobook, Patrick King, How to Listen with Intention, over and over and over. And we still owned our business together. So I had to see her every 5 days a week. And she had like after the first weekend, she came in, she cut her hair short and then dyed it bright red. And she's had that red. And I was like, whoa, because she was blonde. She had dyed her hair blonde for the longest time. And so she comes in, I'm like, wow, dang. I'm like, wow, she looks amazing. And then I'm like, damn, she lost her damn mind, right? That was what my first thought was. Oh, she's off the deep end. And so it wasn't until I started really figuring some things out about a couple weeks in that I realized, okay, yeah, she's probably going through some stuff, but I've caused a lot of this pain and a lot of this damage. So yeah, I started just listening to this book and learning that I had conversational narcissism, learning that I had to always have the last, word, learning that I wouldn't listen to most of what she said after the first sentence or two because I had it all figured out. I was the problem solver, right? I had everything figured out that any problem she ever had, I got it. I got it. I got the answer. And it took me a while to realize that that's not what she wanted from me.
Yeah.
That is not what I needed to be in
Sometimes
those
just
moments.
listen,
Uh-huh.
especially
Yeah.
with women.
Yep. Yeah, so I started learning about this thing called holding space, and I started learning about this thing called, what they call a safe space. And I started learning, that I didn't have to have all the answers. I didn't have to have all the solutions. What she wanted was just me to listen to her and to let her know that she was validated, and that's really what happened. And I started learning how to draw things out of her and ask her more questions to get, more in depth on some of the things that she wanted to talk about. So, but that's really when things started shifting a few months into this whole journey. But I actually had to read another book too that helped shift my mindset. Was called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Because
Yes.
what I realized, part of my problem was I was so focused on success and business in the future that I was really neglecting our relationship, and wasn't putting as much focus on it that I should have. I was kind of lost out there and just charging the hill and just really, really wanted to get us ahead in life. And so that,
Being present is huge. That's
man,
something that I continuously
yeah,
do, and it's that groundwork, right?
yeah,
Like, whether if it's, like, grounding yourself
yeah,
or praying or but just taking a moment out of your day, and especially in the first thing in your mornings, it's, like, really centering yourself and just
yeah,
being aware
yep,
that, "Hey, this is where you're at right
yeah,
now,"
yeah,
and just positivity, right?
yes,
Continue to shift your
yes,
mind into that state of this is what I'm going to do to better myself
yeah,
so that I can be better for others.
exactly. Yeah. I chose this path, right?
Yes.
I chose this path and here we are, right? On the path now. And
Yeah.
that is big. I actually saw this sign at a little, I don't know, I was talking to these people, and this one lady that I was talking to at the bar owned a little boutique shop, and I went over to check out her boutique shop to support her small business. I was a small business owner, and I always like supporting other small businesses. Well, I saw this just little handmade sign. It looked handmade. It probably was handmade in Vietnam, but still, right? It was plywood with a little border on it, and it just said "Choose Happy." It really hit me when I saw it. I was like, man, I just got done reading that book, and I was like, you know what? Life is a choice that we get to make every single day. And I have the choice to be
Mhm.
happy or be miserable.
Yep.
And I'm not going to let
It's like
life,
those moments,
yeah.
yeah, don't let it be a bad day, let it be a bad moment maybe, you know?
Yeah.
Kinda start shifting that viewpoint
Yeah.
too. So that's
hmm
really good.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so in all the crap that I was going through, I'd find those little moments of happiness, and when I was getting anxiety or having like getting kind of a panic attack feeling coming on, I learned how to kind of get talk myself out of those by thinking about my kids and vacations that we'd gone on and just fun things that we had done together. I had to get into a happy place to battle that shit because it was really, to really kick your butt if you let it.
Yeah.
The thing
Those
that
thoughts,
yeah, I'd
right?
never
Like
had
those thoughts that you gotta
oh, yeah. Oh,
really, really look out for.
yeah, and I think they come from the pits of hell, to be honest with you. I think it's
Yes.
straight from the enemy, but,
Yes.
he comes to seek and destroy. So, yeah, I realized that I had to control that stuff, otherwise I'd be one of those statistics being on, taking pills and all this dumb shit and be diagnosed and all that. I was like, "You know what? Nah, dude. I'm not gonna let society put a label on me. I'm going to figure this stuff out on my own because I know I have a strong mind and I know I've got a heart and soul and I can figure this out." And I just sought the right people. I sought the right people. I journaled. I started writing a lot. And anyways, this is the big part of the story, obviously, because it changed my whole life. And so we start talking, and I asked her over for dinner about 3 months in. She declined respectfully, but I was cleaning the house when I wasn't drinking in the evenings. I was cleaning the house, remodeling the house, working on the shower and stuff, and getting it ready to put on the market. And yeah, I kept asking her, every week or two, I would say, hey, I'd love to make you dinner. And she finally accepted one night, and she came over. As the first time in like 2 or 3 months that she'd come over to hang out and to talk. She'd come over in the morning to say goodbye, hi to my son a couple times, but this was finally coming. I saw some fruits of my labor. Like she was like, okay, I'll come over for dinner. I said, great. So we started having great conversations. After dinner, we talked for like an hour, and I just started learning how to communicate with her better because of the audiobook and because I was willing to put in the work. You can listen to 30 books in 30 days or read 30 books in 30 days. It's not really going to help you much unless you're pulling lessons out of those books and putting them into action. So
Mhm.
that's what it really is, the recipe, for success and being persistent, consistent. And so we started talking. She gave me permission. She said, look, I want to give you permission to ask anything that you want to know, but I have to warn you, it might hurt and you might not like it. And I was like, oh, damn, that was a whole nother level that I hadn't thought about. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, we're building trust. And so yeah, I dig in. I asked her a few times, some stupid questions, and I got the answers that I expected, and it hurt me. And yeah, I found out she had been resenting me for years, and the love was falling by the wayside. She hadn't been in love with me much in the last previous years, so that really hurt. But I had to know it. I had to learn. I needed to know what was going on with her, where we were at. And one night I said, "Well, I feel like things are going really well." It was after a dinner that I had made for her. She goes, "Yeah, I think so too. Look, I know we're going to grow old together at some point, a year, 2, 3 years down the road, we're going to get back together." And I was just like, hey, I didn't want to hear that. That hurt. I'm like, what? So anyways, I just kept working, kept doing my thing. I just honestly wasn't really chasing. I was chasing her, but I was giving her space and I was listening to her and letting her just unload stuff. And it
It's
was
so
great.
important. Now
Yeah.
that you mentioned that, like, going on that, you really had to take that time to get to know yourself. You
Yeah.
had to get some time to actually know her in a sense
Yep.
too, right? A
Yeah.
form of communicating not only just yourself, but others around you and how to grow your business better. Because also like in marriage too, that's also a business,
Mhm.
right? You're learning how to communicate not just with her, but on every other level with partners, with I mean, that's essentially what it is, right? And so with that, I wanted to ask, how do you think that really overcoming all of those different challenges like really helped you as an investor and as a person, especially going through
Yeah.
that,
Oh,
because that's a
yeah.
huge shift for
Yeah.
anyone.
It really was. I mean, it translates into all areas of your life. You have to be, your relationships have to be healthy. You have to be healthy mentally before you can build anything great. all areas of your life really should be healthy, and and that's not the case for a lot of people. I started talking to after our ordeal was over. I got into this room with some wealthy men. I did a mastermind, then I was invited to a weekend event that they were doing with this high end mastermind group, and I wasn't part of it, but I got invited because my mentor saw something in me, and he's like, "Hey, look, I'd love to get you in this room." Basically, I said, I'm there, right? And so I got in the rooms, and these guys are like high end, high net worth individuals, and I'm going to snowboarding with them for the weekend. We had activities and all kinds of stuff. But I sat in the living or the kitchen one day, and I started talking about my story and the book that I read and some of these things, and these guys were very intrigued by my story and how I was able to turn things around with my wife. In fact, they all came up to me and asked me, what was the name of that after I was done? What was the name of that book again, bro? Because these guys were all about education and learning and reading books and listening and
Yes.
and having guidance. And that's when I realized, man, I've got something really special here that I need to share with the world. And so
Yes.
I kind of really pretty much that weekend decided I needed to write a book about this whole thing. And that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
So but to finish the story, I'll cut out some of the small stuff, but we basically started talking more and more, and those 20-30 minute conversations turned to an hour to 2 hours to hanging out by the campfire in the backyard conversations. And I started knowing what happens is you get comfortable. That's really what it boils down to. You get comfortable in your roles, you get comfortable in your work, you get comfortable with the kids, whatever the sporting events and the stuff, right?
Yes.
And you're not focusing on each other anymore. And that's what happens to a lot of people. Not only that, but you grow, some people just grow apart. And this whole event had to happen. We're on our second marriage, right? Basically to the same person, even though we didn't
Yeah.
get a divorce, but we
You had to
basically,
rebuild.
yeah, it's a whole different ball game now. The whole relationship's different. The dynamics are different. There's more mutual trust there. There's, it doesn't bother me to pitch in and help out around the house because we both work from home. So, we share responsibilities. And that was one of the big things for me was to say, hey, look, I don't mind doing dishes. I don't mind doing laundry and helping out around the house. That's fine. But ultimately, she decided that she wanted to give it another shot. I said, look, I don't care about anything else in this life. I just want, a chance to show you that I can be the man of your dreams. And that's all I'm asking you. You don't have to say yes. You don't have to say no. Just think about it. And she decided, we started dating a little bit because we were really building a good friendship and kind of snuck her behind the kids back a little bit. It was a little weird and it was fun though. It was like, I felt like I was in high school again, like dating someone my parents didn't want me to date. My daughter was not happy when she found out. She was kind of pissed, but anyways, it was really cool. And then she decided that one day we had one of those hard conversations sitting on the bed, on the foot of the bed, and we were talking about. I was asking her some questions that I knew were going to be hard, and she said, "Look," I said, "Look, I just want you to know that I'm going to be okay. I can accept it if you've been talking or seeing somebody else, because this was like 6 months in, I think, and we fooled around, went on, hung out behind the kids a little bit, but we weren't back together. It was just kind of like a little fun thing, right? And so, and she looked at me, she goes, okay, she knew that that's what she needed to hear because she had gone down that road, and I actually did too. To be honest with you, she kept pushing me. I was like, what the hell? And I don't tell this part of the story a lot, but you know what? I have nothing to hide. And everything she did had to happen for us to get back together and build this amazing, marriage that we have now. And she's like, okay, well, that was it for her. She knew the old me, the previous version of myself, would not been able to handle, my ego would have been too big to handle the fact that she had, been talking to somebody else. And she was right, 100% right. I would not have been able to handle it. But I came to this realization, to this point, that I knew that she meant more to me than anything else that could have happened. You know what I mean? It just wasn't as important to me anymore. I didn't care. I just was like, okay,
That level of growth.
it's been
Yeah.
6 months. I don't give a shit what you've done. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me anymore. And it was really hard to hear it, but man, it
With
was,
that,
yeah,
I mean, so you guys rebuilt, right?
yeah,
Everything.
yep,
I mean, think about it. Even just in everyday life in general, like you literally rebuild. And even just with the level of businesses that you guys own together, how
Yeah.
many you own together,
Yeah.
and then for how many years, no matter what, it's just a continuation of rebuilding itself. It
Yep.
never stops,
Yeah.
right? Like back to your point about you don't want to be comfortable, you don't want to get comfortable, you want to stay uncomfortable. And you want to keep building because that's the only way that things are going to actually thrive and become part of what it is that you actually want,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Ultimately,
I
we
love
want
it.
to be free. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's most people's
free
goal.
from the heartache,
Yeah.
the those ugly feelings of worry and
Yep.
yeah, man,
Yeah.
that's good.
The
Yeah.
financial stress, the not having enough time to do anything if you have the money, all that. So we basically decided to start over. We got back together and sold everything. We literally sold everything we owned. Had our last flip at the coast. It was a triple digit flip. We made 160 grand on that property, and that was a nice nest egg, right? And then we listed our business too. She's like, I hate doing this now. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be there. I was like, screw it. Let's sell it. Let's just start over. Let's go full time into real estate because that's what we both loved and we were both passionate about still. So we did. We did that. We sold everything. We took 6 months off. Towards the end of that 6 months, October of 22, I think it was. Yep, October of 2022. We went to BPCon, heard about Pace, and joined the community, and basically moved our shit, sold our primary, and like basically didn't know anybody here, not one person here in
Came
this.
to the greatest state on I'm just joking.
Yes,
No,
the
I'm not.
great state of Texas. So we moved.
Texas is pretty great.
It is amazing here. I love it here, and that was a big. We thought about where to move, and I liked how stable Texas was. It
Yes.
didn't have a lot of ups and
You're wrong.
downs.
Other states are great, but because I'm
Yeah,
born and raised, I just
right.
gotta say it. You know,
Yep. Well, and the only reason we even came here is because my daughter moved to Katy with our grandson, and my wife was like, "This was me being able to flex, the new version of myself, and not really put up much of a fight." I was like, "Okay, happy wife, happy life." This is pretty simple, actually, but it was great, and we literally put our finger on the map. It was like, this place looks cool. It's kind of like a big little city. It's kind of what we like Eugene. And we flew out here to check the place out in the fall. Yeah, if I would have flown out in the middle of summer, I would have said, hell no, I'm never moving there. So, anyways, yeah, we ended up moving here. We did the trainings. We took like a 12-day road trip on our travel trailer. Sent all of our stuff over, on a truck, and we had the most
Nate.
epic trip that we've ever had in our life. Still to this day, it was the most amazing road trip, camping trip that we've ever had so far. That we've had so far, I'm going to say, because we plan on doing the RV life here within the next 2 years. But stopped in five
Good.
different, we went through five different states, 4 different states, and 5 different cities that we got to visit along our trip on our
Wow.
way, and did all the trainings, and really just got in and kind of started networking and learned how to share a smaller version of the story. But I really like to go into that relationship part because people just they give up too so quickly, on life and on
Yes.
relationships. It's sad. It really is sad to see how many people give up so quickly. And
Yes. Oh man, that's so good because that's the second time today, really, that I've heard
nice.
that
I love that.
people give up too quickly. It's like at those peak moments where you're going through some really tough crap that like you're going to come out of it even stronger. You just got to just know there is a light. Just know that there is a light and when you're in that light, you're like, "Oh man, I can't believe like that's like nothing."
Yes, exactly. Well, and that's the thing, like with Squat Up Summit, you have to cast the vision while you're on the peak of the mountain, right?
Yes.
You don't cast a vision when you're down in the dumps and in the gutter, like beating your head against the wall. That is not a good time. It's kind of like the similar analogy where you don't want to go to the grocery store on an empty stomach, right? Because you're going to buy a bunch of
Yeah.
crap, food, bunch of snacks and munchies and stuff. So I always make
Unless you go to
sure,
Sprouts.
and I always
Unless you
have
go to Sprouts or something.
right. So I always have a list when I go to the grocery store, and I eat before I go. But it's intentionality, But one of the things that's stuck with me for a lot of years is the coal miner, the miner or the gold miner's little cartoon strip. Have you seen that one? There's 2 miners,
I
one
haven't.
above the other, and they're digging in a mine, and they're looking for gold, and they dig and dig and dig, and the one miner ends up quitting, right? and then you look up and the next miner is one stroke away from gold, and they traveled this same distance, right? One guy quit, one didn't, and that's really how life can work for you. It can be just,
Now that you're mentioning, I think I remember.
yeah, it
Yep.
can be one next deal, one next partnership. You never know what tomorrow
Keep
will
pushing
bring.
through.
Huh? Yeah.
And that's so good. I love that. I love that because part of where we're at too, that was able to help you carry yourself throughout so much, especially throughout these years of businesses, right? Years of building relationships, learning how to cultivate that and build with other people, not just your wife, but that was a huge stepping stone for you to help you through the rest of your stuff.
Yes.
And I love that because not a lot of people can take what they've been dealt with and use that to help them as a stepping stone. Like, that's the thing. Whatever they're at right now, using that as a stepping stone to get them where they would love to be.
Yeah.
And maybe they not have that vision. So, for anyone out there, is there something that you can just, because I want to be mindful of time.
Yes.
What is something that you would, suggest to someone out there who is just lost and maybe don't have a sense of direction? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, and more importantly, really quick, the fact that I can use all those things that I've gone through to serve other people and to help others. That's
Yes.
really where the gold is at. And that's what I've been able to do, not just myself, but others around me who are going through struggles. That is so big. But yeah, people who are, did you say at ground zero?
Yeah. That just starting off, how do they get to, that's a huge step. Even just getting past that, right?
Yeah.
What would something you would say?
Yeah, you really have to believe in yourself. For me, the big part of getting through that whole thing was I knew in my heart, my mind didn't always agree, but I knew in my heart that it was going to work out, and it's hard to explain that, but you just have to have faith. You really have to have faith in yourself. You have to have faith in the process. You have to build a roadmap. You have to, there's so many things I could say, but having a really solid focus and sticking with the game plan, like,
Hmm.
so important. So many people are so quick to pivot and have the shiny object come up, especially with pace. And so you just have to stick with a game plan, know what the game plan is, you get your clear focus on what you're going to do to execute, and just go after that one thing. That's the best advice I could give. 90 days, right? 90 days. It doesn't matter what it is. You have to really put everything you have into it if you want to get traction in that area.
What about if you were starting over right now? Is there anything that you do differently?
You know what? I try not to live with regret. There are plenty of things I should have done differently, but they wouldn't have shaped my character and they wouldn't have given me the grit that I
Hmm.
have now and the
Yeah.
experience that I have now that I can help others out to avoid those pitfalls and
Yes.
those mistakes that I made, so I don't really think I would change anything. I just, the biggest thing for me selling everything and moving and doing what I do now is that I did not want to be that guy on my deathbed looking back at my life and having a life full of regret.
Hmm. Yeah.
I can say that I went for it. I can say that I went all in. I can say that I fought for my wife. I can say that I did everything I could to build a legacy for my family. You know what I mean? And that to me is what life's all about, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I really love it because it goes to show how much tenacity you have to have, in life. You have to have some type of tenacity to just know that as long as you keep at it, stay the course, and no matter whatever life throws at you, you keep going. You're going to end up in a good place as long as you keep doing that. Like,
Yes.
that's really good.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. You got to learn from your mistakes. That's the only small
Yes.
little ingredient there.
Yes.
Yeah. But
Even
absolutely.
though some people may have a lot more, that's
I
okay.
feel like
That's
we have to learn
okay.
them over and over sometimes until we go, oh,
Yes.
that's what
Yeah.
I was missing.
Till it
Okay.
clicks.
Yeah. Yep. So true.
Oh my goodness.
Hmm.
Well, thank you so much. Share with people how they can connect with
Yeah.
you and learn more about what you're doing.
Yes. And I've done a ton of real estate. We didn't really get into that much, but I think relationships is the number one thing that
Yes.
needs to be talked about. I mean, it's so important. So yeah, we do sober living, mobile home parks. We got, we have a really awesome capital raising business that we're growing. We have a wholesale business that we're working on, and we're doing co-living as well. So we have a lot of resources. We have a lot of a nice team that we've been building, and you can reach me if you want to partner with us on any of those things, or put your funds into a deal. You can reach me at Lance Reagan on Instagram or Facebook, Lance Reagan at Facebook. And then here's my phone number right here. This is my CRM line. You can reach me directly on that number.
Thank you guys so much. And let us know what you think. Comment, like, and definitely reach out to Lance. If you got something you want to work with him on, I look forward to hearing more from him soon. And I'm sure you will too. And we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, B.